Good morning, my name is Nikki, I'm the Obsessive bookseller, and today I would like to review Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennet. This is book 2 in the Foundryside series, and if you followed my channel, you know that I loved the first one. Highest praise I've given out in a really long time, and one of my favorites I've read over the last few years. It was so much fun. I loved the inventions, I loved the characters, I loved the ridiculous situations they found themselves in, and I loved the enigma that was the big bad guy. And when I posted those reviews, the overwhelming majority of you said, oh my gosh, just wait until you read the second one, it's even better. And I gotta say, I didn't love it. Okay, so pacing was probably the biggest culprit here. The book starts out at like level 10 Mach speed and sustains that for most of the book. And honestly, I think that quicker pacing is probably what a lot of people liked more about this one than the first one. But for me, I like dynamics. I like having room to breathe. I like having room to reconnect with the characters and talk about cool inventions in this world. But it was just such high level activity the entire way through that I kind of started tuning out some of the action scenes. Like, it gets old after a while. You really do. That's why battle scenes are generally not fun to read unless they're done really well, because the same old for so long. It took about 75% into the book before a slower moment happened that kind of shocked me back into the story. Like, oh, okay, I'm interested again for a little bit. 75% of the book. And that action was only broken up to that point by, like, evil monologuing, which I can't stand. I mean, how many opportunities does the bad guy need to explain his plans for world domination or justify his cause? And to make matters worse, there were kind of two bad guys, and they both took turns going back and forth explaining their plans. I had a really hard time with it. Now, here's my disclaimer. I did this one on audio, and the narrator is a very unconventional choice for an adult fantasy, and I thought she worked incredibly well in the first book. But in this one, all of those action scenes may not have been quite as intense of an experience had I read it physically rather than listened to it. But the narrator's way of conveying things was this constant level of high stress. I still have a little bit of benefit of the doubt in here. I'm going to pick up the third one because I already got approved for it from the publisher, and I'm going to be physically reading that one to see if it makes any difference in the experience. Because, you know, it's never pleasant to feel like someone is yelling / nagging at you for 10 hours straight. There is a very real chance that a lot of my problems stem from the narration rather than the story components, but we shall see. I mentioned the villain already. One of the main reasons I wanted to continue the story was because I thought the villain was such an enigma, and it was such a cool idea, and it felt like he was building up for some sort of finale reveal. Like, I didn't figure we'd get a lot of information in this second book. I figured we'd get more, but then I figured it would be a huge build-up to the final book. Not the case. He takes all of the enigma and mystery surrounding the villains and just plunks them right on a platter in front of you and says, this is my cool villain, let me explain ad nauseum who he is and what he's doing. I generally have a hard time with villain POVs in books because a lot of times they don't take the time to get really in-depth with the character. And so they usually come across as very superficial and cheesy. And I felt the same thing here. There was no depth of character. Now, granted, this series, if it has one flaw, there is not a lot of depth of character to begin with. But then you add in an evil POV, and it's a hard sell for me. The other characters, I didn't like their motivation or their whys on why they were involved in this in the first place. Like, why are they taking it on themselves and are making themselves completely isolated in tackling this challenge? Like, it's a whole city full of really powerful people. Why are they doing it alone? And you know, it wasn't all hate. I did like a few things about this one. The cover's really pretty. The character Orso cracks me up. Really love him. And I still think the magic system is cool, even though they didn't get into the, like, deep mechanics of it all in this one. So where I'm at now, I don't like the direction the story is going. I'm not interested, all the mystery is gone, all the fun elements that I thought in the first one was gone. I just don't know if I can handle more of the angst. But I have already requested the third book and been approved, and I know better than to do this. I wrote like an arc management article several years ago on my blog, and I still refer to it, and I broke my own rule. I requested a sequel before I had read the book in between. Never do that. I feel like it's the reading gods punishing me for getting greedy. While I had a lot of problems with the decisions made in this book, the basic craft was there. So I am giving it a 2.5 out of 5 stars, meaning the quality of the content was better than just okay, but I'm not sure if I liked it or not. And keep in mind, I am the massive minority in this case. Most people love this one even better than the first, so take my rant review with a grain of salt. Let's talk about other books you might like. I find this one fun to recommend books for because a lot of people have heard of Foundryside, but not a lot have heard of the Eli Mon Press series by Rachel Aaron. This is actually a combination of the first 3 books. The first one is The Spirit Thief, and I love this story. One of the main premises in Foundryside is this girl's ability to communicate with the things that have been spelled, essentially. And that's the basis of the magic system from here, only this guy can communicate with all things. All things have an energy and are susceptible to being manipulated into doing whatever this guy wants them to do. It's a fun magic system. This one also has a lot of cool enigmas that actually stay enigmas for most of the story, and part of the fun of reading is discovering more things about them in a very gradual, natural manner. At this point in time, I think I prefer this series and recommend it very highly. This is one of my all-time favorite authors anyway. The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson, for the magic system specifically. They have these intricate stamps that they spend forever designing and getting perfectly so that when they imprint something, it changes its reality. And that's essentially what scribing is in Foundryside. So if you like the magic system in Foundryside, you will definitely like the magic system in Emperor's Soul. Now, as far as the magic behaves, that's more like Sanderson's Allomancy in his Mistborn saga. And actually, I did this last time too, where I started out with Mistborn, but then ended up recommending The Alloy of Law, because the tone of writing between the 2 books is very similar. But yeah, again, for tone, era, and magic system, this is a really good crossover. And I'm going to do something unconventional and recommend one that hasn't quite come out yet, but In the Shadow of Lightning by Brian McClellan. So the world building in Foundryside was kind of wild. It's unlike anything I've ever read before. It took me a while to kind of pinpoint what kind of era we're in, and it had a lot of really cool ideas and reveals where the further you go along, the more in-depth you get, and I find that building component really exciting. If you liked the unconventionality of Foundryside, then I think In the Shadow of Lightning is also a really good pick. I feel like both stories get increasingly more bizarre, but not in a bad way. The Book of Jerrig by Stephen Brust. There's a relationship the main character has with something that reminds me of the main character's relationship with Loyosh. They're also both written with a very cheeky overtone. This one has more of a concise mystery, but I feel like the character profiles are kind of comparable, and something about the overall atmosphere kind of rings similar to both series for me, so that's why I'm including this one. There we have it. Thank you so much for joining me on this review, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye.